Hello, I'm Yang Rui with the Dialogue, brought to you live from Beijing. Debates are flaring up in China about a most controversial clause in the draft provision of the renewed marriage law. This temporary judicial interpretation of the Supreme Court suggests that should a marriage end in a divorce, the premarital property is to be recognized as the buyer's personal assets instead of a married couple's commonwealth. In a country where men are traditionally expected to purchase the family residence before the marriage, the clause is naturally regarded as man's blessing but women's curse. At present, supporters and opponents both have their own very solid reasons in the current debate. Today, we are joined here in the Beijing studio by Ms. Luca Lu, partner of Capital Associates, and Edward Lehman, managing director of Lehman, Lee & Xu. In an ensuing telephone interview, we shall be talking to Mr. Lam Tze-Yan, ONC lawyers of Hong Kong. What do you think of the driving force behind the judicial interpretation about this most controversial section of the marriage law?
I think the reason is mainly because there are more and more property, people's assets are growing. So that's why it's a huge demand to make guidelines on this.
Yeah, it's about guidelines, but it's also, and just so our foreign viewers understand, these are Supreme Court judicial interpretations. These are drafts of them. And it's different from in our country where in the United States, for example, that the Supreme Court is stare decisis, you follow case law. This is actually an interpretation that is trying to help to make the system uniform. And I think the problem that we've experienced in the past, or we've seen in the past in China, has been an inconsistency of awards, an inconsistency of how the judiciary is going to handle the disposition of properties after there is a problem in the marriage or after there is a divorce. And so I think that the interpretation is really about making uniform awards and uniform property and guidelines so that people can have the same kind of input from Beijing to Shanghai to Ningxia, wherever the heck it would be. So I think that this is the purpose, I think, one of the main purposes from the driving force behind it, in my opinion. But I agree. Absolutely. Property and real estate values are going up, and it's a huge issue.
Also, divorce is getting up, right? The divorce rate is getting up.
Divorce rate is getting close to my country in the United States. I guess it's
the divorce rate in the year 2009 is almost on par with the economic growth rate of the same year. It's 9% of the whole population. Isn't it that a big shame for the country, which is becoming more and more liberal? And yet we are accused of violating human rights. And hey, come on. Let's come back to discuss the most controversial article in the marriage law. But Luca, what do you think of the importance of protecting personal property? Because a lot of the young colleagues in my office argue that there is a strong possibility that some people who are not so decent would like to take advantage of the loopholes and to steal the properties, to take advantage of the loopholes, and you know what I mean?
Well, I know what I mean. I know what you mean. I think that's why there are a lot of debate on this, because it seems like interpretation is much in line, in compliance with the ownership issue. But however, I think the marriage is a bit different. What do you think about taking advantage in a marriage? Who's taking advantage of who, right?
What do you think of a Fatal World, that kind of a funny show in Jiangsu province, where you saw a young girl who made the very famous quote, who made the very famous remarks, "I'd rather marry someone with a BMW instead of crying on the backseat of the bicycle." Therefore, working hard is no match for marrying a wealthy man. Is that a popular mindset with the young girls nowadays in the Chinese society at large?
Certainly, I think that there is some thought about people marrying Mr. Money, not Mr. Right.
But wealthy men are not stupid. They know this danger
Yeah, that's right. No, I agree. I think that there are people who are marrying Mr. Money and not Mr. Right, and I think that this will help to safeguard people to be able to preserve their property. And the idea of the law is that it's supposed to be blind and indifferent to both sides, and I think that this is what it is. It's stating how the property is to be divided. It's stating it very clearly, and so that people, can be aware of these types of things before they get married. And I think programs and controversy about this law and this draft interpretation is really good, because it gets the word out there and it allows people to make an educated decision about whether to marry